My name is Benjamin Shonk, and I graduated with a major in sustainable horticulture. It was not exactly my idea. I guess they've been discussing it for a few years now, and I was an interested student. I really wanted to push it through and see it happen. So I work at Union Street Diner, and I will read the boxes of, oh gosh, this might be bad for USD. I'll read the boxes of onions, and they'll say, grown in Mexico, shipped to California, then delivered from Michigan. And then there's also the fossil fuels spent to do that, and it's supposed to be a more efficient way of feeding the population, but at the same time, efficiency is carting onion more than across the country. So I would wake up every Wednesday around 10 and harvest the produce, and then there would be a veggie sale in the Grover Center, right in front of the Atrium Cafe. So we would sell all of our fresh produce there, and then we also would get produce from the student learning gardens on West State Street by the driving range. Yeah, so we always had excess produce, and we always did our best to get rid of it. But now I'm told, I guess, some of the excess produce is going to the baker's food pantry and also Jeff Market. So my advisors, the people I go to, are Art Tracy, who gives me the plants and the seeds that I put in the ground. And then Susan Calhoun, which is the West End coordinator. She gives me all the equipment if I ever need any rakes or any gloves or shovel, stuff like that. This was the one location that they were considering because it's technically like a pilot project. We wanted to start small. If it didn't turn out very well or you didn't like it, then we wouldn't continue it. But because I'm volunteering my time, we're continuing it next season as well. Baker Center's, the bottom of Baker Center is already facing south. So that's great, we get a lot of sun coming in south. So the sun was not an issue. What we were really concerned about were herbivores, like rabbits or deer, or other people for that matter. So we had to keep in mind deer and what they can eat, which is basically anything. So we had to line the lower side of the garden bed with squash because the leaves of squash have little fine hairs on them which deter deer. So as we deterred the deer on one side, we were able to plant peppers and nasturtiums and sage on the other side. What was there before was a bunch of daylilies. So they looked really beautiful, and there was just an excess of them. And if you notice in the other Baker Center beds during the springtime, you'll see a bunch of daylilies. So that's what was there before, but that was it. Come midsummer, they just turned into weeds, and then they'd just be overthrown. So this was a way to manage at least one of those garden beds. This season, we had 3 kinds of squash. We had gray squash, green squash, and yellow squash. We had poblano peppers, jalapeno peppers, and your regular green bell pepper. On the sides, we had nasturtiums, which are a spicy leaf. You could put them raw in a salad, or you could toss them with a steak, and it adds a little peppery seasoning. Also great, I give the flowers to my dog. She loves them to eat them. And then we have onions in there now, which I need to pull, and sage and fennel. I am going to take some of these back to my house to eat, and then I'm going to run the rest of them over to the student learning gardens and then put them in Arts High Tunnel for the sale on Friday. So like I said, the squash would deter deer, but then midway through the summer, I got squash vine beetles and squash bugs. So I was unable to do anything else with the squash. So I had to pull all the squash, and I still had to think, how do I deter deer? And deer do not like garlic or onions. So that's why we laid the onions along the shorter side where the deer would get up. So the deer would see the onions and be like, oh, I don't want anything in that bed. I can't eat the onions or garlic. We can't really expand because it's in a fixed bed, but we will intensify the vegetables we put there. More less monoculture, more multiculture, a lot of different plants interspaced, and trying to make it look crowded, but also it needs to be aesthetic and look nice. I fully intend to keep working this garden until they allow me to do another garden bed either one right beside it, because that's a really optimal location. It gets a lot of like people walking around, and it faces south, so that's our full sun we want. We had a little problem with the wind at that location because the wind would just like bank off the side of Baker Center and really brush up a bunch of veggies and mulch. I want people to see where their food came from, and hopefully in a way it'll help them be less wasteful because they saw the life cycle of that plant. So instead of like taking a bite of that pepper and throwing it away, they hopefully use that whole pepper or something like that. Just cut down on waste in a way. It was really fulfilling to harvest from the baker bed, put it in my bags, and literally walk it over to where it was being sold. So there was not a mile spent on this food. So there's not a single like greenhouse gas or a single emission spent. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. I don't know. It's really cool. And then that's just one way I feel like I'm trying to save the world.